Hey guys, it's Feeding Frenzy 91, and I'm bringing you some more Walking Dead character bios. We're winding down here, and I'm trying to finish before the second season starts, which has been announced to December 17th. So I only have a few more people to do. So without further ado, let's get to the next person, which would be Kenny. Yes, I know many people are probably expecting Kristen Omid, but Kenny was actually the next person to leave the group since I don't think he's dead. He actually left the group before Kristen Omid did, meaning that he would be the next on my bio list. Now we first meet Kenny. Kenny is actually the first person we meet who is in the original group. If you notice that, because Sean and Herschel are not in the original group. I guess you could count Clementine, but I don't really count Lee and Clementine. I mean, other than Clementine, Kenny is the first person you meet that isn't actually in the group that is in the group that ends up being in the group at least. And honestly, on first glance, Kenny is a pretty nice guy. You know, he actually offers to drive you to Macon, and Lee is trying to get to Macon, so it was pretty. He starts off pretty friendly, and you actually just think, okay, this is a regular guy, got kid, wife, and he's just this guy who's gonna just be our friend for the whole game. Oh, are you in for a rude awakening? Well, at least some of us were anyway. Upon reaching Macon, Kenny is the first to lash out at people. Well, because of the duck matter. Obviously, he's the only one actually who was of his family who was really in everybody's face about let's not kick my son out, which is good. And he also during this whole situation, I like how right after this situation of the whole are we gonna kick Duck out? Are we gonna have Duck stay? I like how this really was one of the first. But this wasn't actually the first, but it was the first one that you see where you have to pick really between Kenny and someone else. Because even though technically you had to do that with Sean's thing, that they didn't focus on that till episode 2. But I like how afterwards, after all this yelling and stuff, how Kenny just immediately takes charge.
And you, what's your name?
It's Lily. My dad's Larry.
Keep a good eye on him. These boys will work on getting you your medicine.
That's right.
And you keep an eye on that front door. You're our lookout.
It's Doug. You got it.
And I'm Carly.
Okay, Carly, you'll shift in with Doug when he needs it. For now, get some rest. You're a good shot, and I'd like to keep it that way.
You got it, boss.
I mean, it really showed how Kenny's leader abilities, and it actually showed because initially it was him versus Lily, and then it ended up being him versus Larry. It actually kind of foretold what was going to end up happening in the future, and I really love how it showed how Kenny was like kind of a natural born leader in a sense that he just took charge. Immediately, like after everything happens, he immediately takes charge without asking any questions, and people just listen to him. And that was pretty cool. How Kenny just took charge, and he was like, "You're gonna do this, you're gonna do that, you're gonna do this, you should do that." And even Lily at first, well, I guess because Larry's sick, kind of just listens to him. And it, like I said, it really showed Kenny's leadership abilities. But of course, during this whole episode, once again, Kenny will like come to you, and he'll be like, "What with the whole Sean thing? Can you if depending on what you did, obviously, Kenny will either be mad that it was him who didn't try anything, or that neither of you tried anything. He'll be mad either way, or sad, depressed, I guess, would be a much better way to say it. It showed how he was affected by Sean's death, and the fact that it actually Sean's death really went on with Kenny for all the way up to episode 3 at least. And I really like how they really showed how deeply he was affected by that, because Kenny, during that whole scene, Kenny actually showed how he kind of showed a glimpse at what he'd end up being later on, that if it's not one of his own, he's not going to bother with it, in a sense. In a sense, I say, because Kenny also in this episode did save Lee's life, which actually showed his loyalty. Kenny is a big about loyalty, and that comes up much later. But what I mean with the whole Sean thing was that Kenny kind of just like, I'm saving Duck, I'm getting out of here. He's like, I focus on my own, I get out of here. That's what was Sean. And it actually showed up a little later, much more clearly that was kind of Kenny's natural personality. Even though part of him would, like, if he's your friend, if you're loyal to him, or if he's loyal to you, then he's going to help you. Because even if Lee doesn't help him in the meat locker, when Lee is trapped under the door, he will not help Lee. He's like, you weren't loyal to me, I'm not helping you. However, in episode 2, when Ben and them need help, Kenny is like one of the first to say, like, we got to help them or we got to hurry. Because Kenny is still pretty like with helping people. Now, when it comes to loyalty, see, these people haven't done anything to him yet. He seems to be willing to help random strangers. But when it comes to people who he knows, if you're not on his side, then it's kind of my way or the highway when it comes to Kenny. Which makes him really different from Lily. It shows more after they actually get into the whole they come back with the bodies or whatever you call Ben with David or Travis. How Kenny, when Kenny is kind of like if you're neutral, Kenny will not be happy with you. Like I said in Lily's bio, as long as you're not a gangster, she's cool. But with Kenny, it's either his way or he's not cool with you no matter what, unless you do exactly what he wants to do, basically.
No, Lee, it does matter. One person can't be in charge of everything. You know, it might feel safe for you to sit on the fence, but sooner or later, you're gonna have to decide whose side you're on.
Also, during this whole scene, I kind of like how Kenny is the only one doing nothing. I don't know if anybody ever realized that, but Lily's on watch. Katch is dealing with either David or Travis. Carly's watching the kids. Ben, I don't count Ben because he's not technically in the group yet. The kids are coloring. Larry and Mark are on the wall, and either or if you save Doug is working on the alarm system. Kenny's the only one just sitting down, and that I kind of find that I mean I understand that he just came from a hunt, right? But still, I was kind of like, wait a minute, what are you doing? Why are you just sitting down on this couch? Like, okay, you're just doing nothing while everybody else is working. I'm like, not that he's lazy or anything. I just thought that was kind of weird. But I do like how Kenny talks his mind during the scene, like how we're leaving, and I like how if as long as you were on Duck's side once, he's like, you can come with me. Even though once again it's like, if you're not loyal to me, I'm not loyal to you. If you do not help Duck on the tractor, and if you do not defend him with Larry, then he's like, I don't think you're coming with me, man. And I do like how Kenny doesn't need you to feed him, he just needs you to feed Duck. It once again because Kenny really focuses on his family. He was a family man during the whole game, up until they died. And it really was a good quality of him. Like he's like, if you help me or my own, then you're good with me. His care for his family really comes out during the whole St. John's farm bit. Like he was like Kenny at first was the one. It's weird how they switched places. Kenny at first wanted to stay, and Lily was like, we need to get out. And then Lily was like, let's just stay until we get the food. And then Kenny was like, we need to check this place out. Like he was getting suspicious. And I really like how they switch places, like between the whole Lee going to check out the bandit camp. And during this whole thing, like he's like, Lee, I have to be paranoid. I got my whole family on this ranch. And that was so true that he had to be paranoid because, I mean, he does have his whole family on this ranch. Though, once again, Kenny is just so focused on his family and he wants to lead, but he doesn't realize that him being too focused on his family is the one that's preventing him from being a good leader. Because, like I said, in the drugstore, Kenny was a good leader. Why? Because he actually wasn't focused on his family as much as he was in episode 2. Because in the drugstore, he's telling everybody what to do, and he's like, get the pills for Larry, get this, get that, get Glenn. So he's like focusing on everybody. But in episode 2, it's just his family. So that's what really stops him from being what would be a good leader in episode 2 at least. I mean, Lily had Larry, but even Lily wasn't as focused on him as Kenny was on his family. Then, and mentioning Larry, we got the meat locker scene. In the meat locker scene, Kenny, what I don't like about Kenny during the meat locker scene, I understand it may have had to be done, right? But, well, obviously it didn't because in my Larry bio, like I said, he took a breath. But with Kenny, he never gave Larry a chance to even be revived. From the very beginning, Kenny's like, oh, is he dead? We gotta kill him. And that's because, once again, he's focused on his family. He's like, I gotta get out of here. This guy is a risk. Let's just get rid of him. And as long as it's not his family, Kenny is like, if you're a risk, just get out. And that's what the personality that I really didn't like about his personality in general. It was like, if you're a threat, or if you're even the slightest chance of being a threat, then we need to get rid of you, in a sense. And that happened up until his family once again died. Now, and during this meat lock, we actually get a real glimpse at Kenny's personality as a whole.
If she wants to live, she'll work with us. If she doesn't, then the hell with her.
And that's his doctrine. It's like, yes, if you work with us. If you don't, then you're gone. And it's kind of like, he kind of had this mentality of just either my way or you're just out, you're gone. And that's why I like said. And then came episode 3. Like I said in Lily's bio, she was trying to just be normal, I guess. And Kenny had to go out of his way to kind of be like, you need to stop leading us.
Somebody needs to make executive decisions for the group, though. And I don't think you're capable anymore.
So, really, I didn't like how Kenny was like that during episode 3. He was really like, okay, I'm leading, we need to get out of here, we need to do what I say from here on. And I'm like, okay, Kenny, you need to just chill because you just killed the woman's father. Just let her be for now. But of course, Kenny wasn't allowing that to happen. But I did kind of feel sorry for Kenny during this episode, no lie, because even his, as I mentioned in Catch's bio, even his wife turns against him in this episode, and Kenny kind of feels like everybody's just blaming him.
I'd like a thank you for once. For once!
So, but then of course came when Duck was being bitten, and I really think that whole thing in the meat locker, how Kenny was like, one of us has to make the hard decisions, right? I really think that was supposed to be like a premonition of sorts, like when it came to his own, he wouldn't be able to make the hard decisions. When it came to Duck being bitten, Kenny was not able to even make a decision at all. Kenny wanted to act like it didn't even happen.
He's getting sicker.
Let me look at him.
I mean, you could tell that Kenny realized that Duck was dying, but he was like complete and utter denial during the episode. And no, I mean, Lee had Kenny right on the money after the meat locker scene.
You talk a big game, but could you do the hard thing if it was Katjaa or Duck?
And Kenny couldn't do the hard thing if it was Katjaa or Duck. When it was just Duck, Kenny couldn't make the decision. Kenny was in complete and utter denial. And once again, it showed his character in a sense that, like, because even his answer to Lee was like, that wouldn't happen. It never even occurred in his mind that he may lose his family. I mean, that had to be in his mind. I mean, you're in the middle of a zombie outbreak, and you're not going to think, I may lose my family. No, you're like, that's not going to happen. No, if I have anything to do with it. You don't always have anything to do with it. You can't control what other people is going to happen to them. And that meat locker thing was kind of showing that Kenny would be in denial when it happened to his son, which he was. Even after he stops the train, Kenny is still like in utter denial of what's going on.
Isn't there some sort of pill or something we can just give him?
Stop it.
Just drift off to sleep. Right, hun?
I mean, he was like really like, no, the Duck is not dying, no matter, or even if Duck is dying, we're not going to shoot him in the head. And after what he did to Larry, I was thinking like, come on, man, you can't be like that, saying this is the hard decision. I know it was his son. Honestly, I felt for him, it was his son. But still, after what he did to Larry, I was like, you need to man up and do this. I mean, it was just a lot of denial, but of course it was necessary because afterwards Kenny goes through a complete and utter change of personality.
You told us it was your parents' store back in Macon. That was enough personal information.
Honestly, Kenny actually becomes more dedicated to the group after he loses his family. Obviously, because they're not there anymore, Kenny once again tries to lead the group. And Kenny is like, let's find a boat. Now, the thing about the boat is that most people didn't realize is that Kenny wanted to find the boat because of what happened to his family. Not simply because he still thought it was the best plan, I believe. I think it was more because they couldn't have died in vain. I think Kenny believed that if he found the boat, after everything that happened, that would have made up for at least partly of what happened to his family. Because it'd be like, at least I was right. At least I was right in the end. At least we can escape on a boat. At least the plan would have worked. At least we would have escaped in the end. And you can tell that, like, when Kenny finds the river, he's in denial that there's no boat.
There's gotta be a boat. There's gotta be.
Up until he finally finds one, and it's like kind of like just a moment for him. It's like, yes, it wasn't a waste. My family didn't die for nothing. However, even after that, Kenny kind of shows that it's one thing about Kenny, he has a selective memory, okay? And this kind of comes out when it comes to Molly.
She saved your life, didn't she?
Yeah, but what has she done for me lately?
But that actually happened more so when it came to Lee. If Lee does everything Kenny wants except for like the meat locker thing, Kenny will always be like, you haven't done anything for me, or you haven't done this, or you haven't done that. And I was like, come on, man. I've done honestly, after Lily left, I tried to do everything that Kenny wanted because I was like, Lily's not here anymore. Might as well just be friends with Kenny. And so I was like, and then Kenny was still always like, no, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, man. Perhaps it's better if I explain it this way. If you do not help Kenny in the meat locker, but you help him every single other time, he will still say this.
Lee, man, you know I care about Clementine, and I am a Christian man. And I keep asking myself, if this was me, asking you for help, asking you to put your life on the line, would you be there for me? Because there have been plenty of times when you ain't been.
I was like, I really wanted to slap Kenny at that point, because I was like, is there a slap option here? Slap your friend. How about that? Because, I mean, Lee has saved Katjaa and Duck countless of times. Lee has helped Kenny. Lee has saved Kenny even. And Kenny, as long as you don't help him in the meat locker, it's like, oh, you still weren't loyal to me that one time, so I'm gonna just bring that back up every single time. Even when Lee's arm gets cut off or not, and you go through the whole scene where Kenny is like, we may have to just kill you now. I was like, during that scene, I was like, okay, now Kenny, now you're just running out, because you can't have that much of a selective memory. You just can't. When it was Duck, you just wanted to ignore the fact that he was bitten. But when it's like Lee, it's like, oh, you were bitten. We have to kill you now. And I was like, Kenny, no, 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 no. You cannot seriously be that dense at this moment.
We could be looking at a Larry situation here.
But all in all, Kenny wasn't a terrible fellow. I mean, he was still a pretty good friend to Lee, even though he had all those. He had that selective memory. If you were not completely with him, I mean completely with him, because Kenny will bring up anything that you do against him, anything, and I mean any little thing that was done that wasn't exactly according to his plan would be brought back up later and used against you. So Kenny had a very selective memory, and he would forget all the countless times that you've saved his family or stuff like that half the time. But honestly, when Kenny's family's death really changed his personality, and I think it changed it for the better. I know that sounds mean, but it did change it for the... I mean, honestly, would Kenny have sacrificed himself for either Ben or Krista had his family still been alive? No. But it made him more focused on the group after his family died. And that's why I think Telltale killed Duck and Katja. And it really did do something for the whole Kenny's personality thing. It really changed him for the better, and it made a Kenny that was much more easy to get along with. So one thing also about Kenny, he was the one to notice Lee and Lily. He actually says that it's about that Lee and Lily would build a picket fence around the motor inn, like they'd make it their nest egg, and I kind of like that. Like Kenny obviously thought that something else was going on between Lee and Lily, and he obviously noticed the attraction between the two. And he's the only one really to notice that other than Larry. Anyway, like I said, Kenny wasn't a bad guy and say, but when it came to his family, he was too involved in them, too less in the group. And he also was too up about wanting to be leader and not realizing that he wasn't in the best position to lead the group. Alright, other than that, Kenny was just Kenny, I guess, and you can just take him or leave him. And literally, that's what the game says, take him or leave him. Alright, that's it for this bio. Next, I will be doing, I guess you guys can guess. Thanks for watching, like, comment, subscribe. Sorry it was so long, but God bless.